Medicine is supposed to heal you, but for most of history, the cure was often way more disturbing than the illness itself. Imagine going to the doctor with a headache and walking out with a hole drilled in your skull, or being told to drink mercury, rub arsenic on your skin, or even eat ground up human bones. For centuries, people trusted these bizarre treatments because they didn't know any better, and honestly, some of them sound more like horror movie torture than medicine. Today, we're counting down creepy ways people used to treat illness. Number 7. Bloodletting. For thousands of years, if you felt sick, doctors thought the best way to help you was to drain your blood. That's right, headache, fever, stomach pain. The answer was always, let's poke you and let some blood out. This wasn't just some fringe idea. Bloodletting was the go-to medical treatment from ancient Egypt to the 19th century. The belief came from the four humours: theory, blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. If you had too much of one, doctors thought you were doomed. And since blood was easy to access, it became the first target. Physicians used sharp knives, special blades called lancets, and even leeches to suck people dry. Sometimes, patients lost a pint or two of blood in a single sitting. George Washington, the first U.S. president, actually died after his doctors drained nearly 40% of his blood in one day trying to treat a throat infection. Instead of curing him, the treatment basically finished the job. Leeches became so popular in the 1800s that Europe had a full-blown leech shortage. Apothecaries were importing millions of slimy little bloodsuckers every year. People would slap them on everything from swollen joints to acne, convinced that the leech buffet was somehow healing them. Of course, what it really did was weaken patients, leave them vulnerable to infections, and sometimes speed up their death. Today, bloodletting is seen as one of history's creepiest medical missteps, though ironically, modern doctors still use leeches in very rare cases for microsurgery, proof that even the darkest medical traditions can leave a tiny, squirmy legacy. Number 6. Trepanation. Imagine having a splitting headache, seizures, or maybe just feeling possessed. In ancient times, the solution wasn't rest or medicine, it was drilling a hole into your skull. This practice, called trepanation, is one of the oldest known surgical procedures, dating back at least 7,000 years. Archaeologists have found skulls from Peru or France and Africa with perfect round holes carved into them, and shockingly, many show signs of healing, which means people actually survived the operation. The idea was simple but horrifying. By removing a chunk of bone, healers thought they could release evil spirits, cure migraines, or balance the body's energy. Tools ranged from sharpened stones to crude metal drills, and anesthesia wasn't even a concept. Patients were wide awake, enduring the sound and pressure of their skull being scraped open. In some cultures, trepanation was even seen as a way to expand consciousness. Ancient shamans believed it opened a third eye to the spiritual world. Whether for mystical reasons or medical ones, the result was the same: a terrifying hole in your head. What's even creepier is that trepanation never really went away. During the Renaissance, it was still being used to treat head injuries, and in the 20th century, a few fringe medical practitioners revived it, claiming it boosted creativity or brain power. Of course, today we know better. Drilling random holes in your skull is not going to fix your problems, it's just going to invite infection or brain damage. But the fact that humans across continents all came up with the same gruesome cure shows how desperate people were to fight illness, even if it meant literally opening their heads. Number 5. Mercury treatments. For centuries, one of the most dangerous substances on Earth was actually sold as medicine. Mercury, a shiny, liquid metal that we now know is highly toxic, was once considered a miracle cure. Ancient Chinese alchemists drank it chasing immortality. Spoiler alert, they didn't live forever. European doctors later prescribed it for everything from constipation to depression. But the treatment where mercury really made its mark was syphilis. In the 15th and 16th centuries, syphilis spread like wildfire across Europe. With no antibiotics, desperate doctors turned to mercury ointments, pills, and even mercury vapor baths. Patients were rubbed with it until their skin blistered, or made to sit in closed chambers breathing poisonous fumes. The saying at the time went, "One night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury." The cure was often worse than the disease. Mercury poisoned the nervous system, causing tremors, tooth loss, rotting gums, and insanity. Some victims literally drooled themselves to death. Ironically, these horrific side effects were sometimes mistaken as progress, because doctors believed the treatment had to purge the illness from the body. Even into the 19th century, mercury-based medicines stayed popular. Calomel, a mercury compound, was given to children as a teething powder. It left many with blackened teeth and permanent health problems. Today, mercury is the stuff we carefully remove from old thermometers and fear in seafood warnings. But for centuries, people swallowed it willingly, convinced the silver liquid was saving them. In reality, it turned their bodies into slow-motion horror shows, proof that history's medicine cabinet was often more lethal than the sickness itself. Number 4. Arsenic remedies. Today, arsenic is a word that screams poison, but for much of history, it was sold as a cure, all marketed in fancy bottles and prescribed by respectable doctors. Arsenic-based medicines were believed to treat everything from asthma and anemia to skin problems and even cancer. In the 18th and 19th centuries, arsenic tonics and wafers were especially popular, advertised as restoratives for weak or pale patients. One notorious product was Fowler's Solution, a mix of arsenic and potassium carbonate. First introduced in 1786, people drank it daily like a health supplement. It was thought to boost vitality, clear the skin, and give women a fashionable pale complexion. Instead, it slowly poisoned them. Symptoms included vomiting, diarrhea, hair loss, and eventually organ failure. Arsenic also became part of the beauty industry. Women used arsenic-laced cosmetics and complexion wafers to whiten their skin. These products promised eternal youth but left users with ulcers, sores, and often death. Still, the beauty craze was so strong that some were willing to risk everything for that ghostly many-porcelain look. Even in the medical world, arsenic stuck around longer than you'd expect. In the early 20th century, the first effective drug against syphilis, salvarsan, contained arsenic. It worked better than mercury, but came with its own deadly side effects. What makes arsenic especially creepy is how subtle its poisoning can be. Taken in small doses over time, it slowly destroys the body from the inside, leaving victims looking frail and ghost-like. In the past, people paid money for this remedy, not realizing they were literally buying a beautiful death. Number 3. Tobacco smoke enemas. Yes, you read that correctly. In the 18th and early 19th centuries, one of the most bizarre medical treatments was literally blowing tobacco smoke into a patient's rectum. Known as the tobacco smoke enema, it was promoted as a life-saving procedure for drowning victims, as well as a cure for colds, headaches, and even hernias. The idea came from the belief that tobacco had powerful stimulating properties. Doctors thought pumping smoke into the body would warm up the patient, stimulate breathing, and revive them. Special kits were even made, complete with bellows and long tubes, designed for easy rectal resuscitation. In London, these kits were placed along the River Thames like early versions of defibrillators, ready to re-inflate anyone pulled from the water. At first, some patients did seem to recover, but the real reason was likely the physical act of resuscitation, not the smoke itself. As medical science advanced, researchers discovered the truth: nicotine absorbed this way was highly toxic. Instead of saving lives, it could cause heart failure and death. By the mid-19th century, the practice was abandoned and quietly erased from respectable medicine. Still, the tobacco smoke enema stands out as one of history's strangest attempts at healing. It shows just how far people were willing to go with the limited knowledge of the time and how confidently dangerous ideas can spread when backed by authority. Today, the phrase blowing smoke has a whole new layer of disturbing history behind it. And next time you think modern medicine is odd, just remember at least no one's reaching for a tobacco-filled bellows anymore. Number 2. Treacle medieval molasses cure-all. Today, treacle makes you think of a sweet, sticky syrup. But in medieval Europe, treacle was something far stranger, a thick, molasses-like concoction believed to cure almost anything. Known as theriac in Latin, it could contain dozens of ingredients and herbs, spices, honey, opium, even ground up viper flesh. Apothecaries guarded their recipes like treasure, claiming their mixtures could treat everything from snake bites to the plague. Treacle wasn't just medicine, it was practically magic in a jar. Kings and nobles kept it stocked as a protective charm against poison, while common folk bought smaller doses for everyday sickness. Some versions contained so many exotic and rare ingredients that preparing a single batch could take months. Physicians believed the more complicated the recipe, the stronger the cure. The dark side, most of it did absolutely nothing. At best, treacle acted like an expensive sugar syrup. At worst, its ingredients could be addictive or toxic. The opium made people feel better temporarily, masking symptoms but never curing them. And the supposed antidote against venom or plague was just superstition mixed with molasses. What's especially disturbing is that people relied on treacle during some of history's deadliest outbreaks, like the Black Death. Desperate families trusted it to save them, only to watch their loved ones die while apothecaries got richer. Even as late as the 18th century, treacle was still being prescribed in England. Only with the rise of modern pharmacology did it finally fade into quack medicine history. Today, treacle is back to being a dessert ingredient, but for centuries, it was a sticky symbol of how hope and desperation can be bottled, sold, and swallowed whole. Number 1. Corpse medicine cannibal cures. It doesn't get darker than this. For centuries, Europeans believed the human body itself was medicine, known as corpse medicine. This practice involved grinding up bones, drinking blood, or even eating human flesh to cure illness. From the Renaissance into the 18th century, it wasn't seen as barbaric, it was mainstream. Kings, priests, and commoners alike took part. The belief was rooted in the idea that life force or vital spirit could be absorbed from the dead. Powdered mummy, imported from Egypt, was sold in apothecaries as a cure for headaches and stomach problems. Crushed skulls were prescribed for epilepsy, under the theory that bone from a strong person could calm convulsions. Even fresh human blood was recommended, taken from executed criminals and drunk warm at the scaffold by desperate patients hoping to absorb its strength. The practice wasn't confined to the fringes. Figures like Francis Bacon and even King Charles II used corpse remedies. Charles reportedly made his own potion called the King's Drops, distilled from human skull. Far from being taboo, this was considered sophisticated medicine. The disturbing truth, of course, is that none of it worked. Instead, it exploited both the dead and the desperate. The irony is chilling. While accusing so-called savages abroad of cannibalism, Europeans were quietly practicing their own refined, medicinal form of it at home. Corpse medicine finally lost credibility in the 18th and 19th centuries as science advanced, but its history is a grim reminder in the quest for healing. Humanity has often crossed unsettling lines sometimes, quite literally, by consuming itself. And there you have it, 7 of the creepiest, strangest, and downright disturbing ways people once tried to cure disease, from drilling holes in skulls to drinking human blood. History shows us just how far people were willing to go when faced with sickness and fear. It's wild to think that many of these practices weren't considered strange at all in their own time. They were trusted medicine. So next time you reach for some aspirin or schedule a doctor's visit, just remember, at least you're not getting a tobacco smoke enema or sipping on powdered skull. If you enjoyed this dive into medical history's darker side, hit that like button, share it with a friend who loves creepy facts, and don't forget to subscribe for more strange stories from the past. Because trust me, history only gets weirder from here.